All right, everyone get ready, because today we are going deep on a DC character who, well, he's not exactly known for being a goody two-shoes. That's right, we're talking about Lobo. And the reason we're doing this deep dive is because you wrote in wanting to know more about Jason Momoa taking on the role in the new Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow movie. And while you might know Lobo from the comics or the animated series, there's actually a live-action Lobo that a lot of people haven't seen.
That's right. Lobo's already made his live-action debut. But before we get to that, I think we should probably set the stage here. I mean, we're not exactly talking about your typical hero, you know? Lobo is like, he's foul-mouthed, cigar-chomping, intergalactic bounty hunter with strength that rivals Superman.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely not the kind of guy that would be hanging out with the Justice League anytime soon. What about his powers, though? I mean, is he just some strong alien dude, or is there something more to it?
Well, he's definitely strong, but it's not just that. He's a Zarnian. And Zarnians are known for being insanely tough. Like, we're talking Wolverine levels of healing.
Yeah.
But even more than that, Lobo actually genetically modified himself to be the last of his kind. He wiped out his entire planet Zarnia just because he could. I mean, that's Lobo in a nutshell. He just does whatever he wants.
Wow, that's pretty extreme. And this guy's already been in a live-action movie or show or something, I gotta admit. I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah, he's kind of flown under the radar for a lot of people. His live-action debut was actually in Season 2 of Krypton. You know that Superman prequel series on Sci-Fi?
Oh, yeah. Krypton, the show about Superman's grandpa Seg-El and all that Kryptonian Civil War stuff. I watched a little bit of that show, but never really got into it. So Lobo shows up in that.
He does. The story involves Seg-El and his time-traveling buddy Adam Strange getting captured by Lobo, who's actually hunting Brainiac. Which is kind of ironic when you think about it, because Brainiac ends up being like a huge Superman villain later on. So you got these two big bads clashing, but for totally different reasons.
Interesting. So what did they do with Lobo in Krypton? Did they go with that classic big biker look, or did they go in a different direction?
Actually, they ended up going with kind of a leaner look. It's based on the skinny Lobo design from the comics, which is a little surprising given the whole bounty hunter thing, but it actually worked really well.
Skinny Lobo. Huh. Okay, I got to see that. I'm guessing with Jason Momoa, though, they're going to go full classic beefcake Lobo. I mean, they didn't cast him for his slender physique.
Yeah, Momoa's built like a tank, so we can definitely expect a more classically imposing Lobo on the big screen.
That makes sense. So what was the actor like in Krypton? Emmett J. Scanlan, was it? Did he capture that over-the-top Lobo energy?
Oh, absolutely. He was only in it for like 4 episodes, but he totally nailed that unhinged, chaotic energy that makes Lobo so unique. There was even this one scene where he blows himself up to get through an energy barrier and then just like reassembles himself on the other side. It was pure Lobo.
Wait a minute. He blew himself up like on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have to see those episodes. That's amazing. But speaking of chaotic energy, how do you think that's going to translate to Jason Momoa taking on the role? I mean, he's coming right off of playing Aquaman, which is...
no, it's
very different character.
That's what makes this casting so interesting, right?
Yeah.
We're going from noble, heroic Aquaman to like the unpredictable, often straight up villainous Lobo. It's a bold move. And I think it says something about where DC might be going with their characters.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what does this shift from Aquaman to Lobo tell us about what direction they're taking?
It's a good question. And it leads us to another interesting point.
Okay, so we've established that Lobo is not like your average villain. He's a total force of nature, a one-man wrecking crew with a pretty messed up sense of humor. But how do you think all of that translates to Jason Momoa? What kind of Lobo do you think we're going to see in the movie?
Well, Momoa's definitely got the physique for it. And he's got that kind of intense, brooding energy that Lobo needs. But I think the key to Momoa's portrayal is going to be his charisma. You know, Lobo isn't just a big bruiser. He's got this swagger, this dark sense of humor that makes him kind of strangely appealing. And I think Momoa can definitely pull that off.
Yeah, I can see that. He brought a lot of personality to the role of Aquaman, even when he was being all stoic and kingly. So are we talking full-on villain here, or is there a chance that Momoa's Lobo could surprise us with some, like, anti-hero moments?
You know, Lobo walks a fine line. He's definitely not a hero in, like, the traditional sense. He's motivated by self-interest, pure and simple. But he does have this code. You can almost call it a twisted sense of honor that sometimes leads him to do the right thing, even if it's for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, so he's not just predictable, mindless evil. There's some complexity to him.
Absolutely. And that's what makes him such an interesting character. It's that unpredictability. You never know if he's going to be the biggest threat in the room or a totally unexpected ally.
Yeah, okay. I'm starting to see why they cast Momoa for this. He can definitely play the brooding tough guy. But he's also got that mischievous glint in his eye. I'm really curious to see how he balances those two sides of Lobo. But let's back up for a second. For the folks out there who might not be as familiar with the comics, how did Lobo even become Lobo? What's his origin story?
His origin story is pretty much classic Lobo. Over the top.
Yeah.
And completely bonkers. Remember how I said he's the last Sarnian? Well, he didn't get that title by accident. As a school project, he basically engineered a plague that wiped out his entire planet.
Wait, a school project?
Yep.
That's pretty messed up and kind of brilliant in like a really twisted way. So mass genocide for a grade, check. What'd he do for an encore?
From there, it was off to a life of intergalactic bounty hunting, traveling the galaxy, taking on the most dangerous and usually highest paying jobs.
So he's basically a space mercenary with a god complex and a really bad attitude. But what about his powers? I mean, he can heal from anything, right?
Oh yeah, that healing factor is a big one. Remember that scene in Krypton where he blew himself up? Yeah, that's pretty standard for Lobo. You can shoot him, stab him, blow him to bits. He'll just put himself right back together. And on top of that, you've got the classic Zarnian strength and durability, which already puts him in Superman's league.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that Lobo could actually go toe-to-toe with Superman? I mean, isn't Superman like the gold standard for superhero strength?
Oh, you definitely don't want to underestimate Lobo.
Yeah.
He's gone up against Superman a bunch of times in the comics.
Yeah.
And let's just say it's never pretty. And it's not like kryptonite works on Lobo or anything. You need some serious cosmic level power to even make him flinch.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't just some dude with a cool bike and a bad attitude. This guy's a legitimate powerhouse. Speaking of the bike, though, what's the deal with that chain? Is that just for show, or is it like part of his arsenal?
Oh, that chain is definitely more than just a fashion statement. It's as tough and unbreakable as he is. He can use it to restrain opponents, or as a projectile weapon, or even to swing across like huge distances. It's basically an extension of his own chaotic energy.
Right, because when you're a super strong, unkillable alien, the last thing you need is more ways to inflict mayhem. So is he like a brawler, or does Lobo have any special moves or techniques? Does he shoot lasers out of his eyes or something?
Lobo's not really big on fancy tricks. His fighting style is brutal, direct, and usually involves a lot of collateral damage. He's more about overwhelming force than like finesse or anything.
That sounds about right. So no lasers, no telekinesis, just pure unadulterated Lobo smash.
Pretty much. But that's not to say he's not a skilled fighter. He's a master of hand-to-hand combat, a skilled marksman, and he's got a real knack for using his environment to his advantage.
Right. So there's a strategy to his chaos, which makes me wonder, with all that power and that, let's say, unique personality, how does anyone even try to control this guy?
That's the thing about Lobo. You don't really control him. You can try to point him in a certain direction, maybe dangle a big enough payday in front of him, but ultimately he's going to do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, good luck to Supergirl trying to reason with this guy.
Exactly. That dynamic is going to be really interesting to see on screen.
Okay, so we've talked about Lobo's powers, his crazy origin story, his chaotic personality, and how he basically just does whatever he wants. But there's one thing I'm still not quite getting. What actually motivates this guy? Is it all just money and mayhem? Or is there something more going on under that metal skull of his?
That's a really good question. And it gets to like the core of what makes Lobo such a fascinating character. On the surface, yeah, he's all about the payday and blowing stuff up. But there is this weird kind of twisted morality at play with Lobo. It's not something you see in a lot of villains.
Twisted morality. Okay, now you've got me really curious. This is a guy who wiped out his entire species, terrorizes planets for fun, and you're telling me he's got a moral code.
He does. He's got his own bizarre version of honor. Like he honors his contracts, even the ridiculous ones. He's got this weird sense of fairness. And while he'll totally pulverize his enemies, he's been known to show a grudging respect to people who manage to impress him, or at least survive an encounter with him.
So it's not just random violence. There's a method to the madness.
Exactly. You could always think of it like a knight's code, but filtered through like a hyper-violent intergalactic biker gang. That's what makes him so unpredictable. You never really know what he's going to do next, but you can be sure he's doing it on his own terms.
That brings me back to Superman. We talked about their dynamic a little bit earlier, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on how that relationship might play out with Momoa in the role.
It's definitely one of the more interesting pairings in comics. You've got Superman, the ultimate symbol of hope and justice and doing things by the book. And then you've got Lobo, who represents pretty much everything Superman opposes. Chaos, destruction, a total disregard for the rules. They're basically polar opposites.
Yeah, it's almost like a cosmic joke. Like the universe created Lobo just to see how Superman would handle it. But they've actually teamed up a few times, right?
Oh, yeah. And those team-ups are legendary for their sheer absurdity. Just imagine those two trying to have like a normal conversation. Superman's trying to appeal to Lobo's better nature, which probably doesn't even exist.
Right.
And Lobo's just itching to start a bar fight with the nearest space pirate. It's comedic gold.
Yeah, it's like pairing a kitten with a chainsaw. But there has to be some level of respect between them.
Oh, yeah. Lobo definitely respects power.
Yeah.
And he knows that Superman is one of the few beings in the universe who can match him blow for blow.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of Lobo that genuinely enjoys testing himself against Superman.
So in a weird way, they kind of need each other. Superman needs that chaotic element to challenge his rigid morality, and Lobo needs that like unwavering symbol of order to rebel against.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They embody that eternal struggle between order and chaos. Two sides of the same cosmic coin. And their battles, as destructive as they might be, they help to define the boundaries of their respective worlds.
This all makes me even more excited to see Momoa take on the role. We know he's going up against Supergirl in the movie. But do you think that could be setting up an eventual showdown with Superman?
Oh, I wouldn't rule it out. Momoa's Lobo could be the perfect antagonist for Superman, pushing him to his limits in a way that Lex Luthor or Brainiac never could.
Yeah, Momoa definitely has that unpredictable energy, that willingness to push boundaries. I don't think he's going to play Lobo as a one-dimensional villain. He's going to bring all of that complexity, that twisted sense of humor and honor to the forefront.
Totally. Just imagine Momoa's Lobo facing off against a Superman who's maybe a little more world-weary, a little more jaded after years of fighting cosmic threats. The potential for conflict is huge.
Yeah, it's like a dark mirror image. What if Superman had embraced his darker impulses instead of becoming the beacon of hope?
Exactly. It's a fascinating exploration of the nature of power and the choices we make.
And that's what I love about Lobo. He forces you to confront those uncomfortable truths about the world, the gray areas of morality, and the fact that things aren't always as simple as good versus evil. He's a disruptor, a wild card. And I think Momoa is going to have a field day bringing that to life on the big screen.
I think it's safe to say that the DC universe is about to get a whole lot more interesting with Momoa as Lobo. He's a force of nature, and his impact is going to be felt for a long time to come.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Lobo, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. We've explored his powers, his motivations, his chaotic nature, and his potential impact on the DC universe. But ultimately, I think Lobo is a reflection of ourselves, a reminder that even in a world of superheroes and villains, there's a little bit of Lobo in all of us.
Yeah, he represents those darker impulses, that desire to break free from the rules, to embrace the chaos. It's a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming power and cosmic forces, the choice is ultimately ours. We can choose to be the hero, or we can choose to be the villain. And sometimes the line between the two is a lot blurrier than we'd like to think.
And that is a perfect note to end on. We've explored Lobo's crazy world, his bizarre sense of honor, and what his arrival might mean for the future of the DC universe. It's going to be a wild ride, and we can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring the endless possibilities of the comic book universe.